In this lesson, we're going to look at the CRUD operations and the servlet implementation of the predictions web service. So you're looking at the working file servlet wscode3.txt. We looked at this briefly in the last lesson. This time the focus is going to be on two of the do methods. The first is doGet and the second is doPost. We can look at only two because this will give us a good feel for how the other two, the put and the delete, work. So for example, doPost is used to create a brand new prediction from scratch. doPut is used to edit an already existing prediction. The underlying logic is quite close. doGet, as you can see here on the screen at lines 2 and 3 in the documentation, doGet can be hit by a client in two ways. The first is with the URI /predictions2. That's interpreted to mean get all. In other words, send me back a complete list of the predictions. And the second form, get predictions2 query string ID equals 1, specifies a single prediction by its ID, and that will be sent back to the client. If you look at this second line, line 3 in the documentation, if you change that get to a delete, effectively you have the same logic. So all a delete does is to remove a given prediction from the hash map. Now, let's look at the details of doGet. So in terms of the service logic, we have to distinguish between get all, read all if you like, and get one, and that's done at line 5. Request is the first argument to the doGet method. Again, it's a map that encapsulates all of the information sent in the HTTP request. So we call getParameter with ID to see if there is such a parameter. The basic idea is this. If there is an ID parameter, we're dealing with get1. If not, we're dealing with get all. Furthermore, down here at line 6, we go into the HTTP header and look for an accept key value pair. So for example, if the client wants a JSON payload, then what the client puts into the HTTP request header is accept : application/JSON or the equivalent. If you go back and review the Perl script that runs those curls command, you can see how this is done at the curl level. In any case, on this side, the server side, we just want to see if there is an accept key value pair in the HTTP header. We then want to check to see if it contains JSON, literally. If it does, we assume that the client wants JSON, otherwise the client will get the default, which is XML. Now the logic continues in a fairly straightforward way. If there is no lookup key, which is basically the ID, then we assume that what the user wants is all. So we go into the predictions object, we get a reference to the concurrent map, we grab the values, change those into an array, and for readability, we sort that array. Finally, we generate an XML document, that's the default, and then we call send response, which we looked at last time. All send response is going to do is to take that document, it's called XML here, if needed, convert it to JSON, and send either the XML or the JSON as a byte stream back to the client. Now, the more complicated doGet is actually the second one. We had to extract the ID. We now basically do a lookup in the map to get the prediction with that ID. It's possible, of course, that we got a bad ID. For example, there is no prediction 4257. If a client requests that, we're going to send back, in effect, an error document. Otherwise, we're going to send back the requested document representing that prediction. Now let's take a look at doPost, which is actually simpler than doGet. So the way you hit doPost is up here at line 9. There's a post request, that's the verb, and the URI is /predictions2. The information for the new prediction is going to be in the body of the HTTP request. And it should consist of two parts: a who, the maker of the prediction, and a what, the prediction itself. So the first thing that doPost does is it tries to extract those two. So you see at line 10, get parameter who, at line 11, get parameter what. Very straightforward. If either one of those is null, we have a bad request. So we throw an HTTP exception with bad request as the status code. Otherwise, it's smooth sailing. Create a new prediction. That's that very simple Java bean with who, what, and ID properties. So that's easy to do. We set the who, we set the what, and then we call add prediction. It's add prediction that adds the ID to the newly created prediction. We get a copy of that ID so that we can send a confirmation back to the client saying that a new prediction with ID 47, whatever the number happens to be, has been created. And then we send this response back to the client. This confirmation response, by the way, is always sent back as XML. We never send back JSON for this particular case, although this would be relatively easy to change.